appreciate you all coming here this morning. So I'm gonna talk about stress, sleep loss, and job performance. And this is a very large topic, and we're going to cover just a little bit of it. And I'm going to do my best to kind of scare you into thinking that this is worth learning about. Okay. So the number one reason why employers don't do anything about this, or really even, and a lot I'll talk about employers because that's kind of the container today, but really this pertains to you personally, right? So any of this you can apply to yourself as an employee or an employer. If you're in both of those roles or one or the other, this applies to you, but it applies to you also just as a human being, just as a person. So you can take it to heart, but if it's easier to do, think about your employees and how important this is to them. Right? So we're going to kind of outline the problem. Because again, the number one reason this isn't dealt with is people don't know that it's a problem. And so why would you go to work on something that you have not yet recognized as a problem? So we're going to try and get that instilled. Then we'll take a moment to define some terms, so we're kind of speaking a common language. You know what I mean when I say certain things. We'll take a close look at the impact, get into some detailed situations and understandings of exactly how sleep loss and stress affect your performance. Then we're going to take a look at some solutions and some resources for what you can do. So how many of you got 7 or more hours of sleep last night? Okay, pretty good. How many of you got less than 7 hours of sleep last night? Okay, so we're about half and half. Just for fun, how many of you got less than 5 hours of sleep last night? Excellent. Okay. And I'll spare you. I won't keep going. That can be your little secret. So the number one health epidemic, which you're probably all familiar with in this country, is obesity. But coming right up behind it, closing fast, is sleep loss. So that's huge. It accounts for 3/4, or is directly and indirectly related to 3/4 of our healthcare spending in this country. Again, that's a lot of money. Here's some examples of chronic diseases that are affected, in a direct or indirect way by sleep loss. And we're going to look at some of how that happens. But take a look at those numbers. Those are big numbers. So we know as an aggregate, if we pull it all together and we look at direct and indirect costs, this is costing employers in this country about $300 billion. That's a lot of money. Here's some of the ways that employees are affected. Some of the areas, and again, we're going to go through these kind of one by one and take a look at what's the reality of it. How are these things affected? So my question to you is really to think about as you're going through this presentation with me is how much of that $300 billion is coming out of your pocket? What are you contributing? And that's really your motivation to do anything. Personally, if you're self-employed, what kind of conversation are you going to have with yourself about changing your sleep habits so that you show up as a better employee for yourself? Right? So take a quick look at the definition, job performance, what is it? Just here's some qualities that I think of when I think about hiring an employee, things that I would want in an employee. The list could be longer. What we're going to see is, as we get into the sleep loss, every one of these qualities that you see here are negatively impacted by the loss of sleep. So the employee that you've taken time to screen and hire, and you like the attributes they bring to the company, you then put them in a situation where they get less sleep than they should. The very qualities you've hired them for start to go away. But I'm willing to bet most of you don't lower the salary equal to that. Right? Employees probably wouldn't be too happy about that. Stress. Stress is something I've studied for a long time, and there's a lot of definitions that you can give to it. But somewhere along the line, one of my mentors kind of gave me this very succinct definition of stress. And not like that introduction, it's too much, right? And so stress is an interesting thing. What's stressful today might not be stressful tomorrow. What's stressful for me might not be stressful for Sonia. What's not stressful for Sonia today might be tomorrow. And that's that mark of too much. And you all know it, whether it's you're eating and you reach the point of being full, you know, like I'm at that point. But if you keep eating, which often we do, right, you reach the point of too much. Unbutton the top button, rest back, feel a little sleepy, right? You've crossed over. That's stress. You've taxed your system beyond what it wants to do in a happy way, right? And so we do that over and over and over again to that point of too much. So that's really what I want to think about when you think about stress is where is that? And it changes based on a number of factors. But we don't have to go down the list of factors because you know when you've hit the point of too much. And you can even recognize it in somebody else too, when they've hit that point. Sleep loss. Pretty simple. The RDA for sleep is 7.5 hours. And the loss of as little as 1 hour in one night is measurable. You show a measurable deficit in testing if you lose 1 hour of sleep. So half of this room is operating at a deficit this morning. Right? So here's an example. If you were to lose 1 hour of sleep for 14 nights in a row, you put your metabolism in a kind of pre-diabetic state. Right? This changes everything about how you operate. You tend to overeat because you've got too much insulin and your body's looking for sugar, so you're going to keep putting food in your mouth. Even though you're not actually hungry and you don't need the calories, your metabolism has switched over into that, so you're just going to do it. Right? The inflammatory system comes online and you're hyperinflammatory. So this here we talked about some of the diseases. Just those 14 days put you at a greater risk for these diseases, right? And most of us live in that condition. Most of us chronically get 6 hours of sleep if we're lucky. And sometimes maybe we get 8 hours, but it's not 8 consistent hours. We have children, we have noisy neighbors, it wakes us up and interrupts our sleep cycle, so we don't get the sleep that we need the way we need it. So one of the fun things to say is if you're sleepy, you're as good as drunk. Right? And so all kinds of studies here, what we're looking at is a comparative study to blood alcohol levels. Now, you might think of some of these numbers and think, well, 12 hours, 18 hours, 20 hours, well, that's not a concern. I don't work that long. My employees don't come to work and work a 20-hour day. But you don't know what your employees do before they get to work. You don't know if they get up at 4 in the morning, take the dog for a walk, go to the gym, come home, get the kids, take them to daycare, come to the office. They get there 8 o'clock. Maybe they've been up for 3 hours already, and they're going to work until 6. Now they're starting to get to a point, at the end of the day, they're going to they have to go to a business meeting, or simply they're going to get in their car and drive home, and they're roughly at the level of being intoxicated. Right? So that's your employee, a valuable asset to your company who's taking a big risk. That risk comes to you. Not necessarily in terms of a legal side, but if you lose that asset for a period of time, that affects your business. Right? So another thing is, we talk about being drunk, so we might as well talk about being hungover. 1 in 4 of your employees is taking a sleep aid. Right? We know this. Large studies done for many, many years. We've seen huge increases over the last 5 years of the number of sleep aids being used. So it's regularly somebody's taking a Tylenol PM or an Advil PM or something. They don't think much of it. It's a pain medication, helps me sleep. It's fine, right? But it's not actually fine for you, the person who's depending on that one. We've got a couple things on here that are worth noting. Here, the loss of deep sleep, we'll talk about that a little bit later, how it affects sleep-dependent learning. Okay? And then down here, the irony is you're having a tough time sleeping, so you take a sleeping medication on Monday night. You get a pretty good night's sleep Monday. That's good. Tuesday, you don't function very well. You're a little groggy. Things are slowed down a little bit. But Tuesday night, you don't sleep very well because of the after effects of the medication. What are you likely to do? Take another sleeping pill. And the cycle continues. Right? So these are, again, important things to notice. It's pretty simple. It's pretty basic. It's part of our culture, but it's not really working for us.